John, it'd been about maybe a day since our last session. People had gone back to their own vices. You hadn't seen August or Sunday, or even Luke as of late. In fact, you just made it back from your little lovely discussion with... what was his name again? That's... that police chief... whatever it was. You'd just gotten coffee in the morning with him. Pleasant guy, really. I mean, not much to him particularly, but you begin to turn the key to your establishment. You feel it ricket, you feel each bolt unlatch with the riches of it. You begin to step in. There was still construction going on next door, that sound of clanking and clattering, people implementing new things. It was a petty thought for a moment what it might be if it was becoming remodeled for an apartment, or hell, maybe it'd be really funny if a detective's office was put right next to yours. As you would presumably walk into your own office.
You presume correctly.
Dear Tamari, I was so confused. Nothing made sense, no matter how I cracked it. It didn't add up. Hell, I even lost sleep, but then someone told me something, to stop and smell the roses. And then it made sense. Nothing making sense made sense, Tamari. Thank you for giving me an efficacy to my dream. Sincerely, motivated and renewed, Thomas Deckard. Who's Thomas Deckard?
Sitting on top of your desk, not in the chair, but rather butt to the wood of your actual desk, with papers pushed aside, your lamp turned off, your blinds slightly open, letting in those little rectangles of golden light. You would see them. Those shorts, that comforting sweater, that fake clip-on horns and metallic tail, as those oranges golden eyes that had never really escaped your memory would look forward at you.
Well, Thomas Deckard is, well, me? I don't know. I don't know how much research you've done into me, but you guys seem like, well, the Hunter Association seems like it likes to put in a lot of work into, well, it's a contestants.
I just thought I'd respect your alias. That's all.
More than fair. You'd see as John would go ahead moving towards his coat rack, putting his coat on the rack, before kind of moving towards the couch and simply sitting down for a second. Good to hear from you, Tamari. I was actually expecting to meet up with you, but it seems like you saved me a trip.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah. You'd see as he slipped his hand into his pocket, pulling out a pack of cigarettes before taking one out and simply putting it in between his lips.
What is it you were going to meet me for?
Well, as I now understand things, and the greater perspective is that this is just, well, a continuation of the exams.
You
So?
see them begin to take their fingernails on their right hand, sort of itching into themselves, itching onto their hand, onto their thumb, looking at you as you spoke.
And so, since this is a continuation almost, and by the way, phenomenal job. It took me forever to figure it out. And once I figured it out, everything clicked. And at first, I don't know if you ever heard my recording but I used to think this Hunters Association stuff was hooey. That it was just a bunch of people who constantly fought each other, put each other against each other to just achieve their goals. Kind of took the humanity out of it, but I'm now learning that it's really up to the individual. It's really up to the person to make of it. You don't have to be a murdering scumbag to get your license. You don't have to be a murdering scumbag to even participate into the exam. You can, but you don't have to. So, I thank you that this exam is, well, I would say it's my kind of style. You'd see as he look at Tamari, kind of giving a slight grin. Style that's not focused on just killing. Style to, I guess you could say, this sounds cheesy as hell, but to reinvent myself.
Such brave and auspicious statements. And
Yeah.
what gives you the confidence to say all of these things? To say that this is only a continuation of your exam?
What gives me the confidence is I had an incident out on the edge of town where, as I described, someone told me to stop and smell the roses. And then it all clicked. The familiar faces I was seeing, the clues that were being dropped, the fact that people were starting to remember who I once was. It all seemed, when I stopped to smell the roses, it all seemed too good to be a coincidence, that I got everything I needed to, well, solve a case.
I suppose that must have been my fault then.
No, not at all. I'll say this. Luke and all of them are still none the wiser of what the hell this is. And you'd see as John would look at you and he'd kind of grin. I have no intentions of telling them otherwise.
And why is that?
Because this is an exam. And ultimately, if I want to be the best detective, I need to make sure that I can solve this without people knowing the background, that this is all just, I don't want to say false, but hooey, that it's a scam, that it's somewhat constructed. Because when people realize that, they go crazy and they give up and they say, what's the point in doing this if none of this really matters?
You would watch as Damari would, from their backside, pull out what seemed to be a false rose, one of those paper mache ones that was colored in with markers, sort of twirling in their hands as it shone in the sunlight.
Already have a Valentine's? God, I really need to get on finding a relationship myself.
No, my only love in life is, I suppose you could say, this, what I'm doing. But I have a question. Have you ever considered that there was more to this than just your exam?
Oh, 100%. I'm not trying to be self-centered. I just know that there's elements here that are somewhat geared towards me, but I know for a fact that you guys oftentimes don't just look at a single individual, that ultimately it's much more holistic. I'm sure that Luke's a part of this, that those two unlicensed people maybe are a part of this, and I have no doubt that there's more to come.
It's funny you mention that because it really did just start with the 6 of you, and then 4 uninvited guests showed. But it's of little worry. Why is it that, if you're aware there's more going on to this, that you're still reluctant to share what you know? Would it not make it easier?
Maybe, maybe not, but I have a gut feeling that if I tell people this, then the perspective gets shifted. It's no longer a case about finding this angler or digging deeper into the whole situation between Redmond and Volker, and it moves past the idea, the case in Stillheoul, and it becomes the how do we pass this exam. I'd rather...
You think people's motivation dip if they realize it is fabrication and not reality?
I think yes and no. I think some people's motivation would dip. They'd think it's constructed. Why do this if this is just an exam? I don't want to be a hunter. I didn't consent to this. But I also think that people would hyperfixate. I'm sure you've maybe heard, I don't know how connected you are to this exam and how much you hear, but me and Luke, we got very fixated on finding this angler, on finding Redmond Volker, and chasing every lead to the point where we made ourselves look like idiots, that ultimately we got so hyper fixated on that specific part of the case that we didn't look at the bigger picture, that we were too busy chasing our own tails. And so I feel if I go ahead and I tell people that this is an exam, it becomes less of solving the case, of digging deeper, discovering the truth, and more of, this is an exam, how do I succeed? How do I pass?
And what of you? What are you going to do now that you think you know this is an exam and, well, you think there's more to it?
You'd see as John would look towards Tamari, smiling now reaching into his pocket and producing a lighter and smoking it. As he does so, the smoke slowly rises, hitting the roof for a second as it kind of splits and diffuses into the room. He takes his hand, and he kind of holds it in between his pointer and middle, and he goes ahead and he just lifts it away before blowing out a puff of smoke and simply saying and grinning, "Well, I want to solve this case. I want to find the truth. I don't care about helping either side. I just want to know the facts. I want to dig deeper. And well, the fact that I know, well, this is an exam just means that I can manipulate it better. That I can press different leads and sources now." As he'd say, grinning straight at Tamari.
They would have that soft smile back at you, letting the paper rose fall as they pushed it lightly in the air, that sort of twirl that paper does, moving left and right and left and right as it falls at your feet. How much of this case do you think you've solved?
Well, specifically, the case of Angler or the case of Stillheoul?
Whichever you think you're following.
Maybe 5 to 10%. Or, I think the better way of saying it, I think it's stupid to say whether or not it's 5, 10%, whatever, because ultimately, it's a puzzle. I feel as if we have the pieces, that we have everything, that we just haven't put it together yet, that we haven't started connecting the pieces, that we have a broken puzzle, and all we have are the fucking inside pieces. We've got to get the fucking, the corner pieces? You'd see as John would look at you kind of gesturing.
You think you have all of the pieces to the puzzle?
Not all of them, but I feel as if we have a good amount. It's just that we haven't been able to put them together.
Let me entertain this idea. You would watch as, once more fishing around from their backside, roughly in those pockets, they would pull out a Polaroid, flicking it in the air a couple of times, watching as that black would slowly fade into an image as they put it face down on your desk. I'll entertain this idea of a puzzle by giving you another piece. Because, how do I
You haven't hardly begun, and I would say you're missing more than you believe you are. And I would say you're too focused on this being a puzzle and an exam still. As they would hop up from your desk. Is there anything else?
What's wrong?
I'm here. I'm just thinking of what to ask.
Okay.
Say, you say that I'm too busy thinking that this is a case, that this is a puzzle. What in God's name am I supposed to be doing? Not asking for like the solution or such, but I've been told so many different things, and ultimately, it's not like I don't know what to do. I'm, as my note says, motivated and renewed. I know what I want to do, but man, I want to move past this. I want to be better. I want to be a goddamn detective.
You have heard many things. You've heard conflicting ideas. You've heard so much that confuses you, I bet. I suppose if I had any more advice to give you that isn't just the answer, Thomas, maybe stop listening to others.
Can you say that again?
Maybe stop listening to others.
Not bad advice. Not bad damn advice at all. A little bit of a conflicting advice, you know. Don't listen to advice, but listen to your advice, you know? But no, I think I understand.
Everything can
Now-
be interpreted as a paradox, could it not?
Oh yeah, Jesus Christ. It's a fucking paradox. Contradictions and shit. And I hope you don't mind, but this is unrelated. This is more of, what the hell is going on with Luke?
What do you mean?
Kid ends up in jail, now I'm watching over him, and now he's told me some shit about his backstory. What the fuck are you doing with him? Why are you putting him with me? Why? What's the significance of that? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love him. He's great, but why?
Maybe I didn't
You know what?
want him to be alone.
Fair enough.
Is that satisfactory?
More than satisfactory. I was actually just gonna say, don't tell me. It's time I think for myself, I guess you could say.
There you go.
Say, wanna go get some coffee? I highly doubt you came all this way to just sit in my office and then go fuck off.
Oh,
And I guess it'd probably be nice. Oh, motherfucker. And, you know, what's really starting to confuse me and piss me off is, you know how many people have gotten into my office and just sat in here while I've been gone? Like, what the fuck? Do I have to change the lock? Like, does my lock even work?
No.
Let me guess, the window's unlocked.
He would not.
You know what? Makes fucking sense. Makes fucking sense.
You really should keep better security. Maybe a camera.
You think I have money to get a camera?
They would.
I mean,
sort of
shit.
shrug.
Look at my desk. I use a fucking typewriter for half the shit I write.
really is unfortunate you're not a hunter.
It is unfortunate. But maybe I'll become one, maybe I won't. I gotta think for myself now. I gotta see whether or not I want to be a hunter. Ultimately, though, I know what I do want to be. I want to be the best goddamn fucking detective around.
Their smile would brighten ever so much more, being the sort of solace, sort of grimace almost. You enjoy yourself in your silly goal. Not silly, but I suppose it's humorous from my standpoint. Enjoy yourself, Thomas. Or
You too.
John, or whatever.
Is he standing up right now?
Yes.
You would watch as John would stand up and he'd make his way towards Tamari. Standing in front of him. I'm assuming Tamari is quite small. He's like child size, right?
Yeah, like 4'7".
Yeah, 4'7".
Tiny.
He'd go ahead and put his hand forward as he'd simply extend his arm, his hand open, as he'd simply offer a handshake before saying, "Just call me Thomas. No need for the games when we've both been truthful to each other."
They would slightly smile, once more itching the inside of their thumb before, with their hand reaching up. It was relatively small, slightly tanned skin. You could see the glisten across it. It wasn't sweaty or wet or whatever it was, but it sort of reflected light as they would shake up and down.
You have a good day. And please, don't be afraid to invite me out. I'm now realizing how fun it is to actually go out and, I don't know, have a cup of coffee, maybe some biscuits. I don't know what the delicacies are here in Stillheoul, but I love me a good biscuit.
Neither do I. This is why I'm just aware this place doesn't have the best cuisine, so maybe I will invite you out of city.
And that would be lovely. And then John would step back, kind of out of the way for Tamari to make his exit.
And that they would. Those slow, very quiet, minuscule footsteps, the patter of those tiny shoes as they would make their way out your door, out the front door, and you wouldn't see them pass by your glass. Now you are left in that room with that slight playing music and the face-down Polaroid on your desk.
You would watch as John would make his way towards the Polaroid, picking it up.
As you would pick it up, revealing it face up, it would be a description you recognize. A half sort of pure, though tired-looking, used face, where the other half is this gory sight. You see flesh ripped, dried blood, and empty eye socket. It was the description in which August had gave you while she was alone in that snow. As you are now left with your thoughts.
John would still have the cigarette in his mouth as he'd go ahead and he'd take the Polaroid and go ahead and... Can you fold a Polaroid or does that just fuck it up?
You can, but it would, like, crease it.
I don't know. I'm gonna kind of put it into my pocket as I'm gonna make my way towards my filing cabinet. As he do so, John, no. Thomas, no, just him, would simply open the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet as he would go ahead and be thinking to himself, to think for myself. Such a difficult concept for me to wrap my head around. As he'd go ahead and open the bottom drawer, he'd Actually, funnily enough, it seems like his top few drawers of the filing cabinet were full of files, while the bottom one was full of, well, an assortment of, I guess you could say, mood-enhancing materials. That specifically being high-proof whiskey, vodka, and obviously a few packs of cigarettes. He'd go ahead and pull out a bottle of whiskey, one that's not been open and one that he remembers that he got from a case, from someone that was happy with his performance, a gift for pursuing it and following it to the end. You see, I've made so many lies for myself and I feel as if it's all gotten jumbled, and I've gotten myself connected with all these different people, and it's always difficult trying to play to them, trying to, well, make them happy. You see, as John would go ahead and uncork the bottle of whiskey, or did I say high-proof whiskey or vodka?
You said high-proof.
Yeah, it's high-proof, like something. Whiskey, vodka, whatever. Going ahead and untapping it, he'd go ahead and take a swig. As he'd simply move over towards his coat rack before grabbing his coat. See, I think now I'm doing it. I think I've just been too busy trying to help other people move past their pain, trying to help them see this case, or moreover, help them figure out a case that isn't theirs. You see, I'm sick of this morality shit of doing the right thing, doing the wrong thing, as he'd go ahead and move back over towards his desk before throwing his coat on the desk. I just want to be good at what I fucking do. I just want to solve the case. And I don't want it to be, I find the bad guy and I lock him up. I just... funnily enough, I just want to be able to think for myself. As he'd go ahead and take the vodka and begin to just pour it over his desk. See, some might consider this a bit extreme, and God knows it's going to be extreme, especially when Luke comes back, or rather hears about this, as he goes ahead, as he throws the bottle on the ground now, it empty, most of the vodka being spread out upon his wooden desk and his leather coat. But I think I've gotten used to this. I think it's a way of marking a new chapter in my life. Burning one's old remnants, killing oneself, I guess you could say. Killing an original persona. As he moves ahead towards his cabinet again and picking out another bottle of high-proof whiskey, as he begins to move towards the center of the room, going ahead and just draining it all over the things he could find, the carpet, the leather couch. But I don't think this is me killing the persona. I think this is simply me accepting what I once was. Not saying I'm gonna go back to killing people, but I think it's time I move away from John Miller. Move back to who I was. To move back to who I am. Thomas Deckard. I've surrounded myself in so many lies that they've prevented me from thinking that if anything bad ever happens, I can just hide again, that I can just disappear again, that I can try to, set up a new life for me. But ultimately, John Miller, fucking the dog of the Ravallo family, those aren't me. Those are shit that's been given to me, or shit I made to hide. I think for me to really think, I need to just be. And I am so cliche. By now, John would be standing at his door. I think I just need to be me. Looking back, the smell of high-proof alcohol would fill his nostrils, burning it as he looks around as everything's somewhat soaked. I think it's good for me to go ahead and start again. But this time not as John, not as Jane, not as fucking, I don't know, Joe Smo. I think it's time for me to go ahead and start again as, well, me, Thomas Deckard. Sorry, Luke. Sorry, Sunday. Sorry, August. Sorry to everybody that knew me for being John Miller. It's time I finally think for myself. As he goes ahead and he opens the door, taking out his cigarette in between his lips that's still cindery, that still has a lit end, as he goes ahead and he flicks it into his office, alighting the whiskey. Obviously, it's not... What is it? It's not as if it's exploding. Simply consider this a fuel to the fire, the whiskey acting as this, as it slowly begins to burn, as it ignites, as the room slowly increases in heat, as smoke begins to build up. John, leaving the door open, looks at it and says, this is kind of fucking symbolic.
You would watch as the fire would spread from the initial spot, like a fire. It would go clean down the alcohol. You would have your eyes closed because of the smoke. Everything would be burning in a fire all around you, and you would notice it begin to crumble already. You would smell the smoke and nothing else. Maybe a burning flash, as you can't breathe much. You'd have to begin stepping out. Everything would feel hot. Your skin would be hot. You'd begin to sweat already. You'd hear the crackling and the popping of fire. You would hear the building beginning to crumble and fall on your right.
As I begin to make my way down the hall, the heat radiating out, the warmth touching my skin, me simply clad in a white dress shirt with a black tie and some dirty fucking slacks, I begin to move my way down the hall as, looking to the wall, there would be, well, a fire alarm. I might be fucking ludicrous, I might think for myself, but I'm not gonna let that poor nail salon also have all of its workers burn alive. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull the fire alarm.
You would do so, you would immediately hear that alarm noise, that beginning to ring. You would hear as above head, these sort of sprinklers would pop out, going as it
do sprinklers start from fire alarms, or does that just start the alarm? Because I'm not trying to put out the fire right away.
When you that is up to the building. This was manufactured with sprinklers, as this is very old architecture.
Okay. Then I'll just give a knock on the nail salon a little bit so that they can open the door and be like, huh? But I'll knock and then kind of make my way quickly down the hallway.
He would do so as the sound of muttering would come from next door as the fire crackling, the smoke building up. You would sort of drown it out in your ears, sort of this own message playing in your mind of thinking for yourself. This was your first thought you had really done for yourself in how long? I bet it felt... what?
It felt freeing. It felt right. Not in a morality sense, but it felt fitting that after everything, after being John Miller, after being the dog of the Ravallo family, after being the Blue Moon Killer, it felt right to drop all the pseudonyms, all the different personas, all the different names, and let it all just be Thomas Deckard. As the building continues to burn, as assumably by now the fire alarms would be blaring from the nail salon, figuring out that there's a fire, the sprinklers setting off, I would make my way to an adjacent alleyway, one that I had grown accustomed to, where my baby Rosa sat. As I begin to walk to my car, I kind of run my hand along the rust as I say, Rosa, dear, I have a feeling I'll be sleeping in you a lot more often. As I go ahead, as I open the door and I enter into Rosa, closing the door with a solid thud, I'd go ahead and take my, what's the little cover that's above you in a car? I forget what they're called.
Sunroof?
Like the, what?
Sunroof?
Not sunroof. No. Like the thing that you flip down. The visor or whatever.
Mirror.
Yeah, the overhead mirror. Upon getting into the car, I'd flip down the overhead mirror as looking at it, I'd take my hand and run my hand through my hair, the long hair that he had not cut in years, maybe. He wasn't a dog no more, or well, he would always be a dog. It's weird. It was a part of him, but he wasn't gonna let it necessarily define who he was. He was gonna, well, think for himself. As he'd go ahead and reach to his glove box, pulling out a knife from it, with obviously a bunch of cigarette butts also falling out of the glove box. Taking this somewhat dull knife, but not extremely dull, he'd begin to kind of, well, bluntly chop his hair off. Not all of it, but cut the length down a little bit so that it wasn't just long, but it was somewhat more manageable.
The crackle of flame, the woof sound as something catches fire quickly, plastics melting and dripping into hissing puddles, the creak and groan of timbers contracting, cries for help, glass breaking, the roof beginning to cave in, the floor groaning, someone banging on a door, shouting next door. It would be ignored. It would be overshadowed. The siren in the distance being completely overrun as... Sorry, Thomas. You lay in Rosa, you sit here, you cut at your hair, letting it fall onto the bottom of your floor, watching as that smoke began to spiral out of what was once your office. Tell me, where does John go? Where does Thomas go?
Thomas would go ahead, starting Rosa, beginning the engine. He would once again reach into his pocket, look at the person that... Was it August? Or was it... I forget whose character. Regardless, looking at the description, he realizes that maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing to go to the outskirts again. Not for an in-depth investigation, but if that individual, or if that... Hello?
Yep.
What was that?
Nothing.
That sounded like a facepalm.
No.
You sure?
Carry on.
He would begin to make his way towards the cafe. No. He'd make his way towards the outskirts of the town. Or, fuck. Now I have to think for myself, and I'm thinking for myself, there's a lot of things I'd like to do. Yeah. Well... What would I like to do?
Well, whatever you would like to do. You give yourself a moment, starting Rosa, as the car would start up. You don't exactly know where you're going yet, but you do know you won't be here, making your way as you leave. You go. You find it out later. riding away from the smoke, riding away from your old life, riding away from those old memories, riding away from Luke, riding away from August, riding away from Sunday. Fragments of paper pass by our camera in ash. They begin to fill the sky as once more that siren would become a little bit louder, that of a fire truck, a few police cars, an ambulance.
Oh, I know where I want to go.
As a particularly large file would pass by our camera, that's yellowish, now blackening texture, it would go into ash as our camera would shift once more into the rear view mirror of Thomas Deckard, a new look to him. Where does he go?
This might sound a bit cliche and a bit stupid, but he goes somewhere new. Instead of dwelling on the information that he's been provided, the people that he's met, ultimately the most important part of being a good detective is exploring, doing footwork, going new places, meeting new faces, because ultimately, even if it doesn't prove fruitful, even if he gets into fights, even if he makes people unhappy, half the fun of being a detective, half the battle of being a detective, or being a detective, is not just solving the case. Because ultimately, why does someone even take on the case? They take it on for the person. They take it on to help the individual, not in the sense of morality, but they do it because they're interested in the person, that they want to know this person, that they want to know this person. So instead of going to the forest, instead of going to the library, instead of going to the sewers, instead of going to the police station, instead of going to the factory, he simply drives somewhere into the town, somewhere that he hasn't been, somewhere where he's not met the people there, somewhere that is new. Because despite memories of the past, despite who he once was, those aren't gone. This isn't him throwing it all away. This is him acknowledging, mediating with himself, coming to terms with his past. And instead of letting it eat him up, instead of hiding behind his past, using fake names, fake personas to hide who he was, he's acknowledging it and moving forward. And for this time, he's truly moving forward. No stupid morality, no stupid philosophy, simply action.
And close.